What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fatal Garage. I'm Josh Thornell, and in today's episode, we're going to be selling a set of Renick Performance downpipes onto this gorgeous Cadillac ATS-V, which is 1,300 miles. Now that you have your lifter jack into place, let's go ahead and lift up the car. That way we can remove the Oem exhaust from the car to be able to get access to the downpipes. Coming to the rear of the car, the first thing I like to do is undo two brackets, which are really hard to see, but I'm going to try and film it. They're back up into here, and there's two 15mm bolts, and there's one of these brackets on either side here. And I'm going to go ahead and remove those and put you up on this tripod so you can watch me do that. So you want to stick in your 15mm wrench here from the side. And then we're going to go ahead and break this loose. After you remove the bottom one, there's going to be another one up at about a 45-degree angle to the top that you're going to want to undo as well. And then we're going to remove this bracket and then do the same thing on the other side. We can go ahead, reach up here, and remove our first bracket. The reason I'm doing this now, and some other people do it later on or don't do it at all, is these actually tend to break. They're really thin. They're just cast aluminum. And so I like to just remove them now, and that way there's no worry about it breaking on a customer's car, and it just takes care of it. Go ahead and remove the other side. Next, moving underneath just the rear end here, we want to go ahead and locate this electrical connector here for this actuator. And then on this side, it's a little bit further up, this side. You want to go ahead and remove or pull back the gray tab, which is the safety tab, then squeeze the plug together and pull down. Do that to the other side. Just pull back the gray tab, squeeze the plug together, and pull back. Moving to the front of our exhaust here with our transmission going down the center right here in front, we have our driver's side catalytic converter and we have our passenger side catalytic converter. We're going to go ahead and remove these two 15mm and these two 15mm to loosen up the back end of this exhaust, so we can go ahead and remove that, and we'll worry about the downpipes here in a bit. Kind of loosen that up a little bit here. Locate your center chassis brace here, and we're going to go ahead and remove these 13mm bolts that hold it in place. Lastly, to remove the exhaust from the car, we need to go ahead and undo these 4 exhaust hangers in the rear. There are 4 of them. I like to use my Amazon exhaust hanger tool, which I'll leave a link in the description below. It makes this job really easy. And then you want to grab a friend, or my wife in this instance, to help hold the exhaust in the rear as we make the last movement and lower the exhaust from the car. You just push it right off and push to the side. So now I'm going to go ahead, and I have my wife over here. She's going to hold up the exhaust. I'm going to go ahead and remove these last 2 hangers here, and then move to the front and just slide it back a little bit. Remove from the front hookup, which I'll show you, and then remove from the car. Now that we have the exhaust out of the way, we're going to go ahead and lower the car back down and pop open the hood. That way we can disconnect the top O2 sensors from our downpipes. Inside the engine bay on the driver's side, we want to go ahead and locate the O2 sensor, which is down into this area. You're going to want to locate it. It's going to be a gray and blue connector. On our passenger side, our O2 sensor is going to be down in this valley area, right between these 2 cables. You can kind of see it. It is blue and gray right there. I'm going to move the camera and get a closer shot as I undo that. The passenger O2 sensor is right down here, as you can see it now. So what we want to go ahead and undo is undo the safety clip that is on it. It is a tab, more or less, that you want to pull off. Once you remove the safety tab, which looks like this, it kind of just slides in on the hook. The actual 2 male connectors, or the 2 connectors go together. There is a slot, and this slides into it and kind of locks it into place. Pull on the tab, and it slides right back off. like so. So now I have this end in my hand, and I'm just gonna kind of push it down, so that way when we lower the downpipe out of it, it comes with the car. Back underneath the car here, we want to locate our passenger side downpipe, and then our O2 sensor, which is our lower O2 sensor for our passenger side, which is right here. We want to go ahead and undo the safety clip, which is just pull this out, and then undo the harness, which is pull this apart, and it slides off the end, like so. Our driver's side lower O2 sensor is a bit harder to get to. It's up onto the side of the housing here for the engine. So actually I'd like to get that last when I'm actually lowering the downpipe out of the car. I'll reach up there, grab that, undo that plug, kind of in that moment versus doing it now. Now we are ready to start actually undoing the downpipes. Our first step is going to be removing this cross brace here, our OEM cross brace. It's a series of 13mm bolts. We want to go ahead and undo those and then remove this brace from the car. We're going to put it to the side because we're not going to need it with the new downpipes. On our passenger side, we're going to go ahead and remove this lower O2 sensor here from our actual exhaust, just to give us a little bit more room to work some wrenches around in here. It is a 7/8. Remove our O2 sensor from that. Moving to the exhaust pipe nuts up top. There are 4 of them. They go around this pipe here. And you can see that there is a heat shield that is completely in the way and blocking 2 of the nuts on the passenger side. So what we want to do is actually take a bar or a wrench, whatever you can use to fit and maneuver in this area, to bend that out of the way. That way we have easier access to this bottom nut, as well as the top nut on the passenger side, which actually is the most difficult probably of the entire job. So I went ahead and bent our heat shield out of the way here, enough to get access to these 4 15mm bolts that we need to take out, or actually nuts, sorry. The studs are into the turbo, so be careful with that. We're gonna go ahead and remove those 4 15mm and then remove this downpipe now that we got easy access. And then at the final step, we'll push this heat shield back up into place. That way it's still doing its job. Now that we have our passenger downpipe out of the way, we're going to go ahead and remove the last gasket here from the actual turbo side. So what I like to do is just use a small flat blade screwdriver or a pick. You just reach up here and kind of pry this gasket out. It's kind of a ring gasket that gets smashed here between the turbo and the exhaust. Just gotta find the right spot, gotta pick it out, like so. On our driver's side downpipe, all 4 15mm bolts are accessible without moving any heat shield out of the way. So we're just going to go ahead and attack those. Our O2 sensors are also going to stay in on this side until we actually remove the downpipe all the way from the car. And then also remember that we have to unhook our O2 sensor wiring harness when we're actually removing the downpipe, that way we have access to it, because you can't reach your hand up to where the harness is currently. So we're going to go ahead and remove those 15mm and then get this downpipe out of the car. We also want to be careful when we're taking down this side to guide the top O2 sensor down from its area. Mine was a little snagged on something, so be careful with that. And then undo your bottom O2 sensor right there from the side of your transmission housing. And then pull your other downpipe away. Now the downpipe's out of the way, we can go up with our small flat blade screwdriver again and remove that ring gasket. Our next step here is to prep our Renick Performance downpipe here. We just slipped on our brackets into the location that we want them. We're not going to tighten them down at all until it's actually on the car. That way This has flexibility and can move around as needed. But what we want to do is transfer over our O2 sensors onto our new downpipe over here as well. The only one that we're not going to do right now is our lower one on our passenger side, just because that's easier to just do it once it's in the car and we have access to the bolts nice and easy and not have to worry about that one. On the driver's side, we have to do that because remember, we have to plug that in as we're putting up the downpipe, just because of where that connector location is in the car. It's very hard to get to. So to transfer over your O2 sensors, you're either going to want to use a 7/8 socket or wrench here. Open-ended wrench works great, or you want to use a 7/8. This is an O2 adapter specific socket here, which you can use. So how you actually use this one is you actually slip it on through the wire. It's got a cut here in the socket. You slide it on, and then you use the breaker bar here, and then we'll break it loose. Set our old downpipe to the side. Now this blue one, the blue one always goes to the top on the ATS-V, so both blue sides will go to the top O2 sensor, just a quick reminder. And then this bottom plug, I like to use this port on this downpipe. It makes it much easier to plug into that plug up top. And then we're plugging our other port here for a wideband, since we aren't putting a wideband in this car at this time. Just go ahead and put your foot on the crossbar here, just to hold this still, and then snug these down. Now that we've prepped the downpipes, we're going to go ahead and prep the turbos by putting in new gaskets here, new ring gaskets, one on each side. Kind of oblong, and then you kind of just press into place, and then they'll get held there by friction while we get the downpipes in. And then I like to, at this time, just because it's all nice and open, just put a little bit of anti-seize on each of these. They don't need much. Just makes it nice and easy instead of having to deal with nuts that are anti-seize. And grab your downpipes. Go ahead and slide them into place. Okay, so I had a little bit of an issue lining it up with the top O2 sensor in on the driver's side. So I took that out, and now we're going to go ahead and retry lining this up. Okay guys, so this exhaust is giving me a little bit of a struggle today. I had to actually remove both of my top O2 sensors, and now I'm going to hope that it fits in place. Been having a little bit of a struggle with the O2 sensor locations and hitting things as I'm trying to guide it up. So it looks like I'm going to have to just install those O2 sensors once the exhaust is actually in the car again. So we're going to go ahead and slide this up, and hopefully it works this time. Slip a couple of nuts into place, that way it holds it so it doesn't fall. And then before we get too far, we want to go ahead and plug in this O2 sensor back into place, since it is in a difficult spot. Now that the exhaust is pretty much up into place, the brackets are still loose down here. We're going to leave them loose until we have the rest of the exhaust on, and then we'll tighten these down as well, just so we have a little tiny bit of play. We're going to go ahead and tighten those 15 millimeters down to 43 foot-pounds, which is the spec. We're going to go ahead and reinstall our last O2 sensor down here on our passenger side. In theory, these are also getting turned off on this car because it is going to catless. So the tuner is going to turn it off, these rear O2 sensors. So in theory, you could just plug these, let your tuner know, just to make sure that they're turned off. But you could just plug them instead of plugging plug them with a O2 plug versus putting the O2 sensor back in here. But we're just going to go ahead and plug that back in. Do a little safety clip. And now we're going to move on to reinstalling the rest of the exhaust. install the cross brace here with the 13mm bolts. This way it's a good protection so that the exhaust doesn't fall on you while you're working on it, having this cross brace in place. Now we have our exhaust lined up and gasket in place here. We want to go ahead and start tightening things down. First up, we're going to tighten this connection here to bring it home. Next, we're going to go ahead and tighten these 15s down on this slip bracket. Now I want to come over here and make sure our crossbar, before I put these clamps on, I like to just visually check and make sure that there are no exhaust leaks or I can see air through the pipe here on the slits. Now I'm going to line them up kind of how I want them. Now that completes everything on the front half. On the bottom here, we still have the top O2 sensors to do here, so we'll get those last. But to finish up the exhaust, we're going to do the rear section, plug in the valves, and also do those last brackets which are off to the side with those two 15mm. So we're going to go do those and then O2 sensors and wrap this project up. We're going to go ahead and just install these brackets back into here. How you can tell which side goes to what is this flat side right here will go to the outside and up. So you can tell that this is the driver's side. And then the passenger side, which also has the flat part, which goes to the outside and up. You can also tell which side goes to the inside based off of the plastic cup here, which goes to the bracket to seat this bushing. So that always goes towards the inside as well. This orientation is the way it needs to go up. We want to re-plug in our harnesses. And then there's a little gray safety tab that we want to press in as well to make sure that they stay in. And now we can put the car back on the ground and off the lift or jacks, depending on whatever you're using. Our last steps to do here is to plug back in our O2 sensor on our driver's side, and then plug back in our O2 sensor on our passenger side. Now that we got our O2 sensors all plugged in, that wraps up to the installation portion of the Renick Performance downpipes. Now we're going to go ahead, start it up, see how this thing sounds. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap up the installation of the Renick Performance downpipes. I think they sound really good. I actually run them on my personal car. So if you did like this video, feel free to give us a thumbs up. Smash the subscribe button if you want to see more content just like this. And just like that, I'm out.